What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Primetime Sports Podcast, hosted by Joey Maylari. So today's a very special episode. I have my good friend Ben Risseeuw-Tipcke with me. He works with me here at BC. He's a grad student as well in the Sports and Administration Master's Program. He's from Wisconsin and formerly worked for the Minnesota Lynx. Ben, an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast today, my friend. How you doing?
Doing good. Appreciate you having me on. We've talked about this ever since I started back in September, so glad we're finally getting it taken care of and getting on here.
Yeah, it's going to be a special episode. It's going to be, obviously, a preview of March Madness, which obviously we have the conference tournaments coming up. I mean, some teams are already locked in. Some teams, obviously, have the conference tournament beginning this week. So we're going to chat about where the field currently stands for the Bracketology predictions of Ben Risseeuw-Tipcke, which you did just begin your own sports blog, which is called Ben's Sports Hub on blogspot.com. I'll definitely put that link on the description on YouTube and Spotify, and when I post this on my Instagram as well, I'm definitely going to mention that. But how much have you enjoyed covering college hoops now on your newly created blog over the last couple weeks?
It's been fun. I've always been a big college sports fan. Growing up in Madison, Wisconsin, going to the University of Wisconsin's college sports has kind of been my life, and my wife eventually gets annoyed with me talking about sports so much, so might as well write it all down so she doesn't have to hear about it as much. But it's been great. It's always fun to kind of like the bracketology stuff. Trying to make my own bracket is difficult. Trying to follow the rules. I know I definitely didn't do it to the best of my abilities in this one, but it's awesome. It's fun to make. It's fun to see who's locked in, who's going to go where. So it's been a good time. I like it.
That's awesome, and I'm happy, obviously, starting the blog was something you were thinking about doing in the past, and then you said, screw it, why not, I'm going to do it, and I've been reading a lot of your posts over the past week, which you have now like 4 or 5 articles online, and I think my favorite thing about it is how much in-depth knowledge you have of college basketball. Like, not many people that are college sports fans can talk, at an educated level about Utah Valley. Like, a lot of these teams. It's Utah Valley, I see right here, a 13 seed. Like, people will know the top 5 seeds a lot of the time and know those teams. Then you'll have some schools that never made it, like Queens of, North Carolina making March Madness. That's the special thing about this and having you on here is your expertise definitely shows in all of your articles. So having you now on the podcast is great, and I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts about where the field currently lies. I know, obviously, a lot will change over the next week, so some of these teams we probably think are a 3 or 4 seed could end up being a 2, that could end up being a 4 or 5, who knows, with the way the conference tournaments go. But definitely excited to hear your opinions, and feel free. I always have some hot takes of my own, so don't feel too pressured to have a hot take, but if you have one, obviously feel comfortable giving your thoughts. But we'll start out with my question I wanted to ask at the beginning, just to set the tone. What, in your opinion, makes March Madness as special as it is?
Yeah. Honestly, I think it's just the chaos that comes from it. It's always fun, you want to see the best teams play, but, we were talking about Utah Valley. I don't know how well they're going to do, but if we look at my 12 seed line, High Point, I think they're a team that's going to come in and just make a ton of noise. Their teams, it's a well-experienced team in the March Madness. I think it's just that's where it comes from. You see, like, some of these smaller schools, on a more academic side, it's great for admissions too. How many people have heard of Hofstra, outside of maybe the Northeast here? It's something that is going to drive admissions, is going to get people really interested, which I really like. They're also just fun games. You get some insane runs like San Diego State and FAU making it to the Final Four one year. Buzzer beaters. Northern Iowa clinched a spot last night. Last time they were in the tournament, they knocked off Texas on a buzzer beater. So it's the chaos that we see from it. It makes it so fun, and I don't know, it's fun to see little stars emerge out of it as well.
Yeah, and I know a couple guys you pointed out before, Doug Eddard being one. Another one I like to point out is DJ Burns. You have really special figures in March Madness that make great runs that nobody really knew about until they make that run. Jack Gonke being another, which I know you've highlighted him before. And that's the special part of March Madness is there's so much unknown, like you said, and the chaos of it, right? Single elimination. There's going to be upsets. There's going to be obviously teams that are higher seeded, have blowout wins, which happens. But it's when those upsets happen that are really special. And I think obviously with it being single elimination, these teams, everybody has a chance to win any given day. So I'm excited definitely to see how things go. And I have a question to follow up with that.
Yeah.
How exciting is it to see a team like Queens University of Charlotte, North Carolina, make the big dance for the first time ever?
It's awesome. And honestly, we're seeing a second team do it as well. LIU, the Sharks out of Brooklyn, fins up. What a story they've been. They made it because Mercyhurst is not eligible due to coming up from D2, which I think is an awful rule. But it's awesome to see these small schools. Queens, LIU was favored in their tournament. Queens came out of nowhere. They upset multiple teams on their way to, where are they in? They are in the ASUN, yeah. The ASUN, I had Austin Peay coming out of that one. So Queens was nowhere on anyone's radar. I have them as my number 1 16 seed, so at least they can avoid the first 4 of the play-in game. But it's awesome to see. Really quick, you mentioned Jack Golke, which I wrote that down as well. We're going to see Jack Golke 2.0 in High Point. Number 99, I can't remember his name. He is 0 for 3 from 2-point field goals this year and shoots a 3 at a 50% clip. We're seeing Jack Golke 2.0. It's going to be fun. But yeah, no, I mean, seeing smaller teams make the tournament, that's what it's all about. You see him celebrating. I mean, it's their national championship. They know that they're probably not going to be UMBC or Fairleigh Dickinson, who knocked off a 1 seed, but they're fun, and it's gonna be fun to watch them play. I'm excited for it, and the Sharks too.
Absolutely. I think that's the special part of March Madness is, like you said, the heroes and the figures that come for it. And the guy you mentioned, number 99.
Chase Johnston. Yeah, right there.
Chase Johnston. So hopefully that ends up being a guy that everybody has on their radar over the next week or two, right? Everyone's going to know his name, especially if High Point makes a big run. And they're already a lock, right, winning the Big South. So they're already in. Northern Iowa's already in. Tennessee State's already in. Queens of North Carolina, and then LIU are all in. And then you obviously have predictions for who you think's going to make it in as of right now. So like I mentioned already, Utah Valley being one, Troy, Merrimack, these are just projected teams that you think are going to win their respective conferences. Right now, the way things stand, who are your last 4 in and your first 4 out? With the way things stand here at, in the early afternoon on March 9th.
Yep. I have my last 4 in as USF, which I think they're going to be an auto bid, but I think they're going to slide down into that last 4 in. NC State, they've been struggling a lot recently. They might be out if they don't do well in the ACC tournament. I think they need to win a game or two. Santa Clara out of the West Coast Conference. I think they're insane. They are in there with St. Mary's and Gonzaga. I think the West Coast is underrated every single year. I think St. Mary's is also solid. I also think Gonzaga, leaving them for the newly formed Pac-12 next year, is going to be a mistake. But I think they're good. I think they're going to sneak in because they do play St. Mary's tonight, I believe, and I think they're going to lose that game because I'm pretty high in St. Mary's. And then UCF. They were a team that won a ton in the middle of the season, kind of tapered off as of late, so I don't know how well they're going to do come tournament time, but if they get a win or two in the Big 12, I think they're going to be solidly in, but they're my last team. First 4 out, Virginia Tech. Again, a lot of this could change. The bubble seemed kind of up in the air this last weekend, and then all of the bubble teams lost. So nothing moved too much, which is, a good and a bad thing for some of these schools. So I think Virginia Tech has a shot to get in. Indiana would need to go on a run. I think their blowout loss to Ohio State certainly didn't help this weekend. I have Auburn in as one of my first 4 outs, the 3 team. I don't think they should be anywhere near this field. They're not going to win the SEC tournament, which means they're going to have 16 losses. It could be 16-16 going into the tournament. That's not a tournament team. They're only in there because Bruce Pearl and the SEC want them to get in, but whatever. Then Oklahoma, I think they're an all right team. I think a lot would need to go right for them to get in, but those, Virginia Tech, Indiana, Auburn, and Oklahoma are my first 4 out, and I think will likely stay out.
I think with Auburn especially, a lot of people think they're in, which obviously Bruce Pearl's pushing for that, with him now being a reporter. And then you have, ESPN, those bigger, sports networks that know if you have more SEC teams in, they think that, drive the ratings. But I don't think a team should get in just because of that. And I know their respective, history, their resume the last few years, besides this year, I know they've been struggling, but the last few years have been a highly regarded team, high seeded. But I don't think that should have any effect, on any bias on them getting in. No. So we'll see, what ends up happening there. But of those bubble teams, which ones stand out most to you? So they could be of your first 4 in, last 4 in, first 4 out, maybe teams that are in that next 4 out. Which one stands out most to you and you think could potentially make a run?
Yeah, I have 3 Big Ten teams. As a little bit of a Big Ten homer, I think the Big Ten cannibalizes itself with how strong they are, and I think they're an exceptionally good conference this year. But we've seen less cannibalization where everyone's beaten everybody, so I think that's good. I have Ohio State, UCLA, and Iowa as my 3 bubble sleeper teams. Ohio State, they're 30 in the net. They shoot at a 49.5% clip from the field. That's insane. Bruce Thornton is averaging over 20 points. They have 5 players averaging in double figures in terms of points. They're going to be really solid. They're a scary team that nobody wants to see. I'd watch out for them. UCLA, another one, they're net 34, although I'm kind of skeptical on the net rankings, but that's how they base it off of. They don't turn the ball over. They protect the ball really well. UCLA, obviously, we've seen them go on insane runs with Jaime Jaquez and the team back during the COVID year where I believe it was Jalen Suggs who hit the half-court 3-point shot. We've seen some, not as hot.
Juzang, right?
Yeah, Juzang was on that team. Yeah. We've seen some not as hot UCLA teams make a run. They're a good 3-point shooting team. And again, they also have 5 guys that can average in double figures, so you got a really deep team. And Then Iowa, I think, is really interesting. I hate Iowa in almost all sports, including basketball, but I think Bennett Sturts is an extremely scary player, and what Iowa has, their issue this season has been Bennett Sturts is so fun to watch. So he'll be balling out, and the other 4 players in the court will be like, wow, he's doing really good. They won't help him out. Mm-hmm. If I was able to play good team ball, I think they could win a game or two, potentially make a run. How far? I don't really know. I think the 7 seed line is a little bit weak this year, so I think that as a 10, which is where I have them slotted right now, could do well. We'll see. But I think Ohio State, UCLA, and Iowa are some teams to watch out for.
I like that insight because you break down, obviously, teams that might already be in, right? Like Iowa, the way things stand right now, they'll be in.
Yeah, they should be in.
No matter what. But you obviously have a lot of expertise to know how each of these teams play as well, which is something that I definitely admire because there's so many teams in this field, a lot of teams that, some of them are already locked in, right? Like we know Vanderbilt, BYU, like those teams are locked in. But to know some of those teams that are on the bubble or just over the bubble that'll be in, no matter how they do in the conference tournament, is very impressive. So that's why it's great to have you on today and hear all of your insight because obviously you've done a lot of work over the last week or two building your own bracket, which we'll get into that at some point. I have a few questions before we get into that, and then we'll definitely break down your bracket the way things stand today. But which conference tournament right now are you looking forward to the most?
I think, obviously, the Big Ten with Wisconsin in it. I think that the Big Ten's always a fun tournament to watch. Although I don't think it's anyone's field this year, I do think that Michigan's probably going to take care of business. Illinois is always a threat. Michigan was a great win this week. And it's going to be fun to watch everybody on neutral courts. That's something, we haven't seen, obviously, in the Big Ten. Seeing how that goes as well is going to be really interesting. I think Purdue's pretty bad. I'm going to be honest with you. I think they're frauds. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but I don't think that they're going to be doing too hot. But yeah, I think it's probably going to be Michigan's. ACC, with Duke's injuries, Caleb Foster is going to be out for the tournament. Pat Ngamba is also going to be out. It sounds like the length of those 2 injuries is going to be, potentially testing Duke in the national tournament. But I think the Big 12 overall is going to be one of the best conference tournaments we see. We have Texas Tech. BYU is maybe starting to come back a little bit. Never count out AJ DeBansa. Arizona obviously is insane. But we've seen a lot of those teams lose every single night. I think the Big 12 is going to be the one to watch. And they have a new glass court too, which people have been kind of getting clowned about because I've heard it's not great, but it'll be fun to watch them change all the graphics on the court each game too.
Yeah, we'll see how things go there. And another team, Iowa State being another Big 12 team.
How did I forget them?
Really
and Houston.
Houston as well. Like there's a lot of good ones.
Yeah.
But I think it's just because of how deep of a conference that is. It's
Kansas
easy
as well.
Exactly. It's easy to say one of those teams with how good they are too. It's easy for people to think it's going to be a very good one to watch. So I'm with you on that. I think a lot of people would agree that's going to be a really fun conference. And one team you did mention, Duke having injuries. UNC is there, fair share of injuries as well, with Caleb Wilson now being injured for the rest of the year. And I think that was a potential team that a lot of people would have predicted to potentially make a run. Is what are they right now, like a 6 seed in your bracket right now?
Yeah, and I think that Caleb Wilson injury is I think that destroys their season. They might win a game or two. I don't see them going too far. I think Caleb Wilson was the real motor of their team. We saw when they came back from Duke, it was a lot of Caleb Wilson doing his magic, and I struggle to see North Carolina doing well, unfortunately. Who knows? They're also another historic team that can just go on a run whenever they want. So we'll see, but I think that I would fade North Carolina if you're thinking about bringing them super far in either the ACC or the national tournament. I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, with the Caleb Wilson injury, it's difficult. That's a guy who I'm very high on, which we'll get to at the end, talking about the NBA draft very quickly. But I think ceiling-wise, I think he has just as high of a ceiling as anybody else that could go in the top 4 or 5 in this year's draft. I think he's a very special player. I think the injury concerns with him, even Darren Peterson as well, are definitely valid concerns, especially if you're a GM in today's day and you don't want to pick high in the draft again and be in the lottery and you're trying to really nail that top 3 pick. I know there's concerns with each of those guys, and that's kind of the case in a lot of the times the NBA draft. You'll see guys fall because of injury concerns, but I'm interested to see where he goes, and I know I'll get your opinion on that at some point towards the end. But which, right now, the way things stand as well, which the reason I keep saying that because there's obviously a lot to still be determined over the next week, but which major team, I'm going to ask you, I guess, 1 or 2 major program, from a major conference and a mid-major program, are you thinking right now is the most underrated? So I guess 1 or 2 from each.
Ooh, the most underrated from a major conference. Wisconsin. I'm very biased, but I think we're good. I mean, we've knocked off number 15 Purdue on the road, went to Michigan, beat them, went to Illinois, beat them, beat Michigan State by 20 at home. we're super inconsistent, and I know that's probably going to come back to bite us in the butt in the tournament, but I mean, if we face a good team, I mean, we're just beating them left and right. Gosh, I think St. Mary's, I guess if you want to call them a mid-major, I think they could make some noise. I think they're really good. Like I said, the West Coast Conference is consistently pretty underrated. Out of the I also think Georgia is going to be sneaky good. They can score the ball really well. I think they might be making some noise when people don't expect them. Mid-majors, I was kind of high on St. Louis. They've struggled recently. I don't know how well they're going to do. Let's see, gosh, who else? VCU, I think, could be tough. USF scores the ball quick, and they're a fast team. They can make some teams uncomfortable. If you really want to go way out there, I think Northern Iowa could scare some of the 5 seeds. They play... They're your dad's Virginia team and your grandpa's Virginia basketball team. They play incredibly slow, and I mean, they don't score the ball, but they also don't let you score. And I really do think that, what is it on there? What is their scoring margin here? They rank very low. I think they only average 69 points a game. And I think they hold their opponents to about 60. And I believe that, they're going to be, if they make teams uncomfortable, it's going to be one to watch out for.
Yeah, and I think in that most recent article you have, too, you point out that they play very good defense. They're the best team in opponent points per game, which is very impressive. And they commit very few turnovers, which is huge in March when you're not giving away, the ball as much as some of the other teams. You'll see teams like Kentucky in years past where their offense is really good, defense is really bad. I think you need a mix, which obviously right now, the way things stand, like you said, they're a low-scoring team, but they have that ability to really shut you down defensively. So we'll obviously see what happens. But like you said, a 12 versus 5, that could be a scary game for a team like Purdue, a team that you said is a little bit shaky right now, that you think might be more on the side of being a fraud rather than being like a very valid team that can try to potentially make a deep run. So we'll see. But I think that insight you gave and the prediction you give of a comparison with it being Virginia is a very good one, which I don't really know too much about Northern Iowa, and that's why having you on here is great because you know so much about these teams and the way they play. So definitely excited to see how they do, considering you said they play really good defense. And I know a lot of people love watching the high-scoring teams that can put up 90 a game, which Kentucky, every year they do that, but they get in the tournament the last few years recently, and not only are they not scoring, but their defense obviously has been poor basically all year typically, just the way they were structured with their roster the last few years. But a team like this, I love defense, so that seems like a team I would enjoy watching. Not many people love that, though, but I like that.
It's not going to be the most exciting, like you said, it's going to be not an exciting offensive game, but if you like good defense, that's Northern Iowa is going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how they do. And are they fully officially locked in?
Yep, they are locked. They won the Missouri Valley.
Okay, so they're ready to go. They're locked in. All right, excited to see what they do. And leads me to my next question. Who do you think can be the next Cinderella team to make a deep run?
I said it before. I think it's going to be High Point. I have seen a lot of stuff on this team. Like I said, the guy who shoots at a 50% clip, Chase Johnston. Yep. I think they're going to be a scary team. I really think they could be a good Cinderella. If you want to call Miami, we'll talk about Miami in a little bit, but if you want to call them a Cinderella, I guess. I think they're not a Cinderella because I just think they're a really good basketball team. And I don't want to call them a Cinderella, but you could toss them in there. Let's root for Hawaii, too. Why not? The Rainbow Warriors I have them slated as making it back in the tournament. They are a little bit shaky at the moment, but I think they're going to do it. Why not have the Bows come over here and give us some fun? So let's throw in them, too. I don't know too much about that team.
I mean, right now, they're projected 14, right? Like you said, right? The way things stand right now today. And very much so, there are 14 teams that have gone on runs and, made things interesting. So we'll see. And I think the breakdown of the bracket you have, which we'll obviously get to that after, a couple more questions, and we'll have your whole insight of, who's a 1 versus a 2 versus a 5 versus an 8 seed. But I think the best part of what you have here is all of the depth, all of the time you put in to ranking each of these teams. And to have a team like a team we just mentioned, Northern Iowa, 12 seed there that could potentially make a run, like that's definitely a Cinderella story on its own if they made a run as the 12.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And a lot of the time people think of these Cinderella stories as those 13, 14, 15, 16 seeds, but there are 11 seeds that have made runs, 12 seeds that made runs. NC State, were they 11 seed when they made the run a few years ago?
Were, yeah.
So it's possible to see, a run from, not just being a 14 or 15 seed, right? You can make it as a 12 or 13. So that's why I like the High Point pick being a 12 seed as a potential team making a run. I think the Northern Iowa pick that you have, which there's definitely a lot more I have to learn about that team, but I do love a good defense. I know it's not really the best pacing of the game. They probably slow the offense down just like Virginia did, and I know that's one of the notes you made about them in your article. But and that might be something that not as many fans are intrigued by, but I like a very good defensive battle. So they could potentially be a team that can make a run as well. And you mentioned Miami of Ohio, so let's flip the script and go to talk to them now. What will it take for the MAC to be a two-bid conference? Right now, it could be Akron, could be Miami, Ohio, could be both.
Yep, I think for them to be a two-bid, Akron would need to beat Miami in the conference tournament. I don't see Akron making it as an at-large, unfortunately. I believe in my thing, I had them as the next. I don't even know I'm in there. I don't think that they're making it in if they don't win, which, I mean, the Zips are insane this year. They only have 2 losses in the calendar year 2026. One of them was to Miami. Tavari Johnson and Amani Lyles are going to just be balling out. They have been balling this entire time. They're going to be scary. Miami's such a tough team, man. Because you were talking about, they win, they get gritty wins, and they don't win pretty games. But that's what you got to do in March. A lot of the wins in March are not pretty. And until they lose, I don't believe that they can. Peter Suter's leading the way. He came back from last year. He's insane. 7 guys are averaging 10 points or more. Trey Perry, he's a freshman, came off the bench and scored 20 or so points against Ohio. Haven't won in Athens, Ohio in 15 years. Got to give credit to the Bobcats fans. They really showed out. The student section was insane. It was a great game. The other thing with Miami, though, is with how much national hype they've gotten, and all of the success that they've had, every single MAC team is going to throw their most at them, like more so than usual. They're going to play their absolute best game. So I think that's why we've seen them in some more gritty games. I also think the refs try to do everything they could to give that game to Ohio, calling 5 techs against Miami. That's it for another day. But
yeah, what do you think of that game, though? I'd love to hear your thoughts. I only watched the highlights of it. I know you watched that game live, and we were texting that next day about it. And what were your thoughts on that game? Which there were 5 techs, like you said. So with 5 techs, I could definitely swing a game for sure. It can give the other team a very good chance of converting and winning,
Yeah, refs kind of took the game. It was a great game. It was fast-paced to start, and then middle of the second half, it slowed down because I think 3 techs were called in 5 minutes, and there were probably 10 fouls called during that time as well. And the refs just kind of took the game over. After that, it exploded in scoring again. It was 100-100 going into overtime. Back and forth, Ohio, missed the game-winning 3, but, it was an insane game. I think it's fun. I think, Maction, as we like to say in football, I think they're always a fun conference. You never know what you're going to get out of them. And, yeah, I think Miami's good. I think that in the conference tournament, obviously teams are still going to be giving it their all, but I don't think it's going to be in the same way that they were before, where they were it was a physical game that I didn't think that Miami was ready for. They still won. They still found a way to win. I think they're going to keep on finding ways to win, but they're a good team. I don't think that they're going to lose. I think that they're obviously not going to win the national tournament, but I would not be shocked if they go on a run to the Elite Eight.
Mm-hmm. And they could win the MAC, you think, too. Even though Akron's been playing very good ball, they've already beaten them this year. Yeah. You think they could beat Akron again?
I think they can beat Akron again. I think Miami can beat anyone in the MAC on any given night. And they have done it the entire season. They haven't lost yet. If you count Miami out, you are doing it at your own detriment. I don't think that they're going to lose.
And they were 32-win team. Are they 32-0 now?
31-0.
31-0. So that's a 31-win team that people are still finding ways to discredit, I feel like. If you look online on social media and even watch TV and people on sports shows, people are still discrediting them, saying if they lose in the MAC final, they don't get in. It's pretty crazy to discredit 31 wins in a row, even if it's not against the SEC opponents. And I get that they can only really play your conference, except the out of conference games. You might play 1 or 2 really big programs. And I know this year they didn't really necessarily have the hottest out of conference schedule. They didn't really have any out of the quad 1 games. But with that being said, that's not on the players. Not necessarily even on the coach. You can only play who's on your schedule, and they found ways to win. But with the way they've won this year, do you think it's more concerning that they're winning these close games, that they're in a lot of these close battles, or do you think it's more honestly impressive that they're finding ways to win and get those gritty 1, 2-point, 3-point wins at the end of games?
I don't think it concerns me. I think it concerned me while I was watching it because I was I want them to keep on winning and stay undefeated. Coming into March, though, you have some of these teams. Duke, Michigan, Arizona, Florida, they don't necessarily have a whole ton of close games. Miami knows how to win those close games. They know when they're down late, with under 2 minutes left, or when a team's just, going balls to the wall against them. They know how to win those games and how to beat those teams. And I think that's something that is invaluable going into March. I would always rather, I'd rather lose in the regular season than take a loss in the tournament. And I think that even though they haven't lost yet, I do think that these games have given them a lot of valuable experience that other teams don't have. I think it's going to carry them further than if they didn't have it. So I think it's good. I think it's going to help them out going forward.
And with the way they're seated right now, I know you have them as 11, and that's just because that's what they're probably going to be. People are going to make their bracket, predictions, and the committee comes together and tries to, figure out what seeds each team's going to be. It's likely they're going to be an 11, but you think they should be higher than that?
Realistically, they should be a 5 or a 6. And if we're being completely honest, they're undefeated. Granted, I don't think they deserve a 1, 2, 3, or 4. They should be a top 4 seed. That is what an undefeated team should be. I don't care. I mean, they have receipts, and they've been posting them, of them reaching out to, I think, is 89 power, which is more power schools than there are ours. There are some other mid-major schools. They've reached out to all of them. All of them said no. You can't discredit a team if every single team says no to playing you. And like you said, I mean, you didn't see Duke win 31 games this season in a row. Like, winning that many games in a row is absolutely insane. It's hard to do whether you're playing the SEC or the MAC. And I think discrediting them is silly if they don't make it into the tournament. I think it's going to be worse than when Florida State didn't make it in. Granted, that was only 4 teams.
For the college football playoff?
Yeah, but I think it's on levels of that where it's just might be one of the dumbest things that this committee would do. And honestly, it would prove to all the other mid-majors that they don't care about you and that there's no point in playing a schedule.
100%. And I think people are just finding ways to discredit them for no reason. And you look at Wichita State was a 34-0 team, right? And this is back in 2013, 2014.
Yep.
And they received a 1 seed in the Midwest region. And so people are discrediting this team. And I know it's very different. Every year in college basketball is different than years past. But that 34-0 team was a 1 seed. And now you look at this. They're 31-0. Could very well be 34-0 at the end of the MAC tournament. And they're probably going to be an 11. And that's a crazy thing. I didn't realize. I just looked it up as I was, talking to you. I was like, what was Wichita State's seeding? And they were 1, which is crazy when you think about it. Now you see this team, and people are just saying they're an 11.
And they did lose in the second round, which is tough for that. I don't think that necessarily bodes well for Miami's chances. But, I mean, I remember that team. That was with, Ron Baker and all of them. That was after they made it to the Final Four the year before that, which that Shockers team was crazy. I still remember them. But, yeah, I mean, there's no reason that mid-major teams can't be a 1 seed. And I think that they should be up there. Probably not a 1 because this year's 1s with, in my opinion, Duke, Michigan, Arizona, and Florida are kind of stacked. But they should definitely not be an 11. They should not be wearing red. They should be wearing white for their first game. They should be the home team. So
yeah, it's a valid point. Valid point. And I know they did lose in that second round, Wichita State, and that was back in the 2013-2014 season, I believe. They lost to Kentucky. But like you said, it shouldn't be discredited finding ways to win games. And it's not on the players. The players just playing their schedule. You can't really fault them for that at the end of the day.
Yep.
I think at worst, and I know people are going to say it's crazy, like you saying they should be a 4 or 5 or 6-ish range.
Yeah.
I would agree with you, though. It's a team that's 31-0. It's like they should be higher than an 11. At worst, 7, I would say. Like, at worst. If the committee wants to say, okay, they're a small team and they didn't play that many big-time opponents, or if any in their eyes, because I know they look at quad 1 wins and quad 2 wins very heavily. I think they only had 1 quad 2 win. People look at that and they use that as a way to judge a team, but it shouldn't be discredited finding ways to win games. I think being 11 is crazy because you're putting them in the same spot as teams that have to win their conference tournament, like VCU, like USF. If Miami ends up winning their conference tournament, they're probably in as... maybe even still as an 11. Like,
I don't think they're getting past that 11 line.
That's what I'm saying. Like, even if they end up winning the tournament, they're probably still an 11 seed, which is crazy. And there are teams there like VCU, which you believe they have to win their conference tournament, right? They have to win the A-10 to probably get in. Yep. Probably same thing with obviously the teams after them, McNeese, Northern Iowa, like they're the 12 seeds. They have to win their conference tournaments. Miami, even if they win their conference tournament, the way they stand right now is an 11. Winning the conference tournament, they don't even move up probably in some people's eyes, which is crazy.
And as a 6 seed, I don't want to play them. I have Wisconsin slated as a 6 seed right now. I do not want to play Miami. I do think we beat them, but I don't want to play them. I don't want to have to take that chance. If I'm North Carolina, who's kind of injury plagued, I don't want it. Tennessee, I think, is not great. I think BYU is the only team where I think AJ DeBanza would probably just go nuts on them. And they also have Keita, who's huge. And I think the size would overwhelm Miami, but I still don't want to play them. That's a scary matchup for whoever they draw with what their seed's going to probably be.
Mm-hmm. And I think what you said best earlier was they found ways to win those close games, which is something that you find is more impressive than concerning. Some people would say it's concerning because, they're in a lot of close games, and maybe in March that ends up flipping right when you get to March Madness. But at the same time, teams that are playing in those close games know how to win close games. And in
Yeah.
March, you're going to have a lot of close games, especially if you're going to be an 11 seed making a run. You're not going to blow out every team around you, right?
No.
You're going to have those close, gritty wins. And I think they're capable of that, like you said. That's definitely not something I would, discredit them on. And we'll see. If they end up losing in the conference finals, or would they play Akron potentially in the conference final would be, or conference semifinal?
That's the only time that they'll play
Conference final. So they end up losing to them in conference final. I think they both get in. I think they're a 2 bid.
Yep.
If they end up beating Akron in the final, I don't think Akron gets in, and then it's just a 1 bid, 1 bid conference. And we'll see. If they make a 2 bid conference, that's very impressive for the MAC. It
That'd
really
be
is.
super impressive. Yeah. One of the only mid-major conferences that would get a 2 bid, so that'd be awesome for them. I think the A-10 is also going to get it as well, VCU and St. Louis. Well, because, I don't think St. Louis has been playing too well recently, but they're a good team. I think they should be in no matter what. But, yeah, I think we're going to have a couple mid-major conferences as a 2 bid, but not a whole ton.
And I'm excited to see how things do work out. And now you look at your bracket, which we'll get into. You break it down your bracket in just a second. I have a few questions before that. Of your bracket right now, which projected 1 seed is the best overall?
I think it's Duke. They're the number 1 team in the country. I think the second best team is Michigan, the second best 1 seed, and Duke beat Michigan on a neutral floor. I think that's the eye test that everyone wants to see. It was a close game. It was a good one. I don't think Duke is by far and away the best team. I think that Michigan can still be. If Duke's injuries are really plaguing them, or if they get some more in the ACC tournament, I think these injuries are worse for Duke than LJ Case and Terrence ACL being done for Michigan. So I'd say it's Duke for now, but I would not. I mean, I also think Arizona and Florida are right behind them too. I think this year's 1 seed is so good. I don't want to see a chalk bracket, but if we saw a chalk of all 1 seeds, I don't think anyone would be mad. I think it'd be some fantastic basketball in the Final Four.
Mm-hmm. And the rest of your ones, right? You got Arizona, you got Florida in there right now to finish out your 1 seeds, and we'll get into breaking down the rest of that, the 2 seeds, 3 seeds, and down the line. I know 1 4 seed you have right now is Nebraska.
Yep.
And I was reading a lot about college basketball last night because I said when I get on here today, I got to have some good questions ready to go, and that's a team that people are concerned about the way they've played over the last month. What do you think is the biggest concern for them? And like you said, we've talked about already, they're in a tough conference, good basketball. So you're going to play good opponents each and every night. But what would you say right now is going wrong with that program, the way they've been playing?
I think they're a good basketball team, but they're not great. I think they started off the year really hot, and they had a lot of momentum, when they beat Michigan State and they beat Illinois. But I think after they took that first loss, I think they started to fall back to earth a little bit. They're a good defensive team. They don't rebound the best. They don't score the best. They are not necessarily getting to the free throw line, which is going to be big in March. You want to be getting to the free throw line. I think it's also just hard to make that big of a run in the Big Ten without having star power. I think they're a good team. They're looking for their first ever tournament win. Looking in the 13 seed line, they're probably going to do it. But I mean, it's I don't know how good they're going to be. I think they don't have a lot of depth on their team as well, which is when they lost to Illinois at home, we kind of saw that Illinois' depth and their big men just kind of ate against Nebraska, and I don't think they're going to have this team. I think they're running out of breath. I think it's going to be a tough tournament for them. I think they're probably going to lose right away in the Big Ten tournament. And then I could see them potentially dropping to a 5. I don't want to drop to a 5 if that were them. 12 seeds are scary. I just think the magical run's going to end pretty soon. I just think they ran out of steam.
And another Big Ten team, Purdue, faltering a little bit as of late. Do you think they're capable of winning it all? Obviously, we've seen them make a deep run. With Edey a few years ago, making it to the finals was very special. That was impressive for them, considering every year they found ways to lose early on, being a top seed. But a few years ago, they made it all the way and ended up losing the final, to UConn at the time.
Yep.
And that's a matchup I'm going to bring now, even though they wouldn't be, necessarily playing each other. Right now, you have Purdue as a 5 seed. You got UConn as a 2 seed. But those are 2 teams that have been not playing the best basketball as of late, which this is usually the time of year they're really figuring things out and finding ways to, win those games and get ready for a deep run in March Madness, or a potential deep run in March Madness, especially in UConn's case. Are Purdue and UConn capable of winning it all right now, or do you think they're more on the side of being frauds?
UConn, I think, can win it all. I would never count out Dan Hurley. I think he's just such a good coach. And I was listening to the Field of 68 podcast, and they were saying whenever Dan Hurley, because he got ejected against Marquette the other day, which my parents were at that game. It was awesome. They have season tickets to Marquette, which, I don't like Marquette. But I think the Big East is also good. I think, Marquette had a bad year. but they're not that bad of a team. UConn I still think is an insane team. Alex Caravan's a dog. I would never count them out. I still think they're going to be good. Solo ball, once he figures it out, I think it's going to be great. Never count them out. Purdue, I do not like Purdue. Beating them is always fun. I think they're one of the worst officiated teams in the country. I mean, they get all the calls they want because they're like some fish out of water. They're flopping everywhere they want to go. And especially at home, watching the Wisconsin beating them, that was so satisfying. But the refs were trying to give that game to Purdue as they do every single time. They're frauds. They always have been frauds. They were frauds with Zach Edey, too. I mean, I'm not a big Zach Edey guy. He would get whatever call he wanted in college. Now he goes to the NBA and fouls on 5 minutes because he's big, but he's not that good. And I think Purdue's frauds. It's Fletcher Loyer and Braden Smith. I mean, obviously, Fletcher Loyer is just a stud from three. Braden Smith is a good point guard, but he can't score. And we saw that against Wisconsin, too. I think he had 2 points coming down the stretch. I mean, you can have 10 assists all you want, but you need to be scoring. That's just not something he can do consistently. I think they're frauds. I see him winning a game or two, maybe. I don't see him going too far. If they do, good on them. But I could also see him getting bounced right away in the Big Ten tournament, too. I don't think that they're that good of a team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a team that people are very high on, right? Were they the number one projected team heading into the season?
They were the number one, projected, the number one overall team preseason, and they just haven't lived up to it. I mean, like we said before, it's a tough Big Ten. But Michigan's done well in a tough Big Ten. Michigan State's done well. They just haven't, and I don't think Purdue's going to be that good.
And another Big Ten team that's played well and have played very well against those top 15 seeds, like you already mentioned, is Wisconsin. And obviously, you're a big Wisconsin Badgers fan, and I wanted to ask you, how much have they surprised you this season? I know heading into this year, you thought this team had a lot of talent and had a lot of moving parts, right, from last year's roster to this year's roster. It's obviously different, especially in this year, age of college athletics. Roster's going to be different every year. But have they surprised you this season the way they've been playing?
Yes and no. I think they started out really well, and then they lost by 30 to BYU, and that I was crashing out after that game. That was rough. And then they were fine. They had a couple bad losses. I mean, I think we got blown out by like 30 to Nebraska as well. We took a bad loss at home to Purdue. And I mean, we're kind of on the outside looking in for a little bit. And then, we get some of these big wins, like at Michigan, at Illinois. Then we just take bad losses. Like we lost to USC at home. We went to Oregon and lost, which I'm going to make an excuse. I think the time change on that one's really tough because I think that game was at 11 p.m. Eastern, and I mean maybe it was
8 on the West Coast.
It's 8 on the West Coast. I mean they were playing at 10 p.m. back home. Yeah, that's hard.
That's even it's 9 o'clock. It's not easy.
No, I mean they're going to bed at that time. They are not getting ready to play a basketball game. I don't want to make excuses, but whatever.
It's a tough flight too.
It is a tough flight.
Midwest to West Coast is not easy, even though you're technically closer probably to Oregon, where you are in the Midwest, than we are right now standing here in Boston. But still, regardless, it's a lot of traveling. It's not what they're used to. And I know that's kind of the ever-changing landscape of college athletics. Right now, you're going to see that more and more. But it's not an easy, commute for them to go from Wisconsin to there.
Yeah. But the way we've rebounded from these losses has been just insane to see. We rebounded from Oregon, and then we beat the heck out of Washington, and then we beat the crap out of Maryland, and then we go to Purdue, and we beat them by, I think it's like 4 points. And, I mean, Nick Boyd and John Blackwell are the best backcourt in the country. Nick Boyd, you can't stop him. He was hitting circus shots the other night. When the ball's in his hands, there's just no stopping him. I think Greg Gard is a great coach. He struggles in the tournament, so that's what I'm a little bit worried about. We're one of the most inconsistent teams in the country, which scares me. I think by metrics, I think we're the second most inconsistent team. But the inconsistency comes from losing to bad teams and beating good ones. So we'll see how that goes in March. When the 3 ball's on, it's on. I mean, I think we hit 18 against Maryland the other day. Or maybe, I don't know, against Purdue as well. I mean, we're a great shooting team. Nolan Winter being out, hopefully he's back for the tournament. He's our starting center, but granted, we balled out without him. So who knows? That's kind of my reaction with Wisconsin. Who knows? I think they're going to break my heart again, unfortunately, at some point. But I also think that we could go to the Final Four. We're going to have to see. It's going to be a rough tournament to watch. I'm going to be freaking out most of the time. But I think we can make a run. I think, here's what I'll say. We've seen the last 3 years, and this is a testament to Greg Gard. AJ Storr comes in from St. John's, balls out, leaves. He doesn't do too well, whatever. But he was insane at Wisconsin. John Tonje comes in. He was like the 330th ranked recruit, or maybe it was like 296. I don't know, somewhere in that range. Ranked recruit in the portal, balls out of Wisconsin. Now he's in the NBA playing for the Celtics. Got to tell Brad Stevens that was pretty cool.
That's your guy, Tonje.
Tonje.
He's going to be a star. You got to tell the pod.
Oh, yeah, John the God Tonje. If you buy stock in him right now, he's a two-way player for the Celtics. He's mainly going to be playing in Maine. He scored 2 points on free throws the other night in the Celtics game. He is going to be a star. Just wait. He gets his chance. He's going to make everybody pay. And then Nick Boyd this year. I mean, he was on a great FAU team, a great San Diego State team. Comes to Wisconsin, he's just going insane. If you were a transfer and you want to blow up and make it to the NBA, you come to Wisconsin. That's all I'm going to say. We are fantastic at developing those players. So, and we'll give you money.
And I think the biggest thing too, you already mentioned, the Big Ten's a very good conference. These guys come from small schools, which Florida Atlantic's been a very respectable program, right? Especially recently over the last few years, they've made a deep run in March. But when you're going to the Big Ten, you're playing really good teams every single night. You're gonna have a lot more scouts, a lot more eyes on you. You're on TV every single night when you play. So that's a nice thing about going to that big conference is you have a chance of more scouts looking at you and then maybe getting drafted. But I think with this Wisconsin team, you mentioned inconsistency being an issue, which I've always been on the side of. Yes, you want a team that's more consistent, and they're basically locked in every game, whether they're playing, lowly regarded team that's struggling or a very good team that's, at the top of the, college basketball landscape. With that being said, being an inconsistent team, but knowing you could flip a switch and make a deep run and beat any of those teams that are ahead of you is important. Because I think when I look at teams, I'm going to compare it to the LA Clippers. Beginning of the year, they were 6-21 to begin the season. I was so down on that team. When they were like 3-13, I was like, okay, they can still flip a switch because they've done it in years past. And I was like, you know what? They're a little bit struggling right now, but I think they could flip a switch. That's all I wanted to know is they could turn things around. They got to 6-21, rock bottom. I said the season's over. They have no chance of turning things around. Here we are today, and they are a game under 500 heading into tonight against the Knicks. That's the point of what I'm saying is that's a team I gave up on. I said they have no chance when they were 6-21 to figure things out and flip a script. And that's because it wasn't only inconsistent thing. It wasn't like they were, at that time, they were 6-21. It wasn't like they were 12-15, right? And they were close to 500. That was a team that I thought they have no chance of flipping the switch and turning things around. With this Wisconsin team, though, they've shown they're capable of winning any given night, especially against those better teams. Yep. That's why I understand the inconsistency is a concern, but at the same time, you can beat those teams ahead of you. I think right now, with the way the field lies, they're a 6 seed in your bracketology predictions, and right now they'd be playing Miami potentially, right? As an 11, which now I'd love to dive in now and talk about your bracket, but that might be a tough first-round matchup, especially for you. You like Miami. You're rooting for Miami to do well because it's a great story, but obviously you need your Wisconsin Badgers to get a win and maybe make a deep run, but we'll see. But I'll let you now break down your bracket predictions here, the way things stand.
Yeah, sounds good. Kind of mentioned it before. The 1 seeds, we have Duke, Michigan, Arizona, Florida. I don't think that's up for much debate. I think those are by far and away the best teams in the country. 2 seeds, we have Iowa State, Houston, UConn, and Michigan State. I've always had UConn as a 2, even though a lot of people had them as a 1. I think they are going to remain as a 2, assuming that none of the other teams kind of lose out. I think, no matter what happens in the conference tournaments, I think Duke, Michigan, and Arizona are all locked into a 1. Florida and UConn I could see switching, but who knows. Michigan State, I think, is a great team. They're not going to make it to a 1 line. I could see them dropping down to a 3, depending on the Big Ten tournament, but I also think that they're going to be in the finals of that, so they're going to stay as a 2. My 3 seeds are Gonzaga, Illinois, Texas Tech, and Virginia. Out of these 3, the only one that I like is Illinois. I think Gonzaga is overrated every single year. Even when they do make it to the national championship and they get blown out by Baylor that year, I believe. Mm-hmm. I think Gonzaga is not that good. That's why I also don't think they should be leaving for the Pac-12. But Illinois, they got a couple of 7 foot something brothers. They're insane. Keaton Wagler, freshman he's like a 3-star recruit that is going nuts. He's so good. Texas Tech without JT Toppin, that's tough. They had a big win at Iowa State, number 4. I don't think they're going to do much beyond that. I think they'd be a Sweet 16 team is my best prediction. With Toppin, they're going to the national. They could be a national title threat, but this year I just don't think it's going to happen. At the 4 line, I have Nebraska, Kansas, Alabama, and St. John's. They're moving up after winning the Big East. Nebraska, writing them off. Don't think that they're that good. Kansas is only as good as Darren Peterson plays, and if he gets a cramp or decides to load manage, I think that could be rough. Wouldn't want to waste a draft pick on him. Preview of that. Alabama, I think, is the second best team in a very bottom-heavy SEC, I want to say. I think Florida's insane. Obviously, in the SEC, I think everyone else is kind of fine. They're inconsistent. They beat Auburn, thank God, because maybe they'll knock Auburn out. I don't think they're that good. St. John's is interesting. I think Rick Pitino, like Dan Hurley, it's not someone you want. That's not someone you want to doubt come March or ever. I think he's so good. Zubi Ejiofor is insane. I could see St. John's making a little run here, especially in the Big East tournament, which is a home tournament for them in New York City. Let's see. Fives, we have Purdue, Arkansas, St. Mary's, and Vanderbilt. Purdue, like I've said, I don't believe in them. Arkansas is interesting because I don't know how good they are. Coach Calipari is another coach that you just cannot doubt. I think they could be interesting to watch. St. Mary's, I think, is a sleeper team. They beat Gonzaga by 10. Granted, it's at home, but I think they're a good team. And Vanderbilt, I think, is not good. I think them and Tennessee have been consistently overrated, and Vanderbilt won the overrated matchup this last weekend, beating Tennessee. I don't think they're that good. Sixes, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Tennessee, BYU. Wisconsin, talked a lot about them. I think they could really make some noise. North Carolina, we'll have to see with Caleb Wilson being out. Tennessee, I don't think it's that good. They're overrated. I think they lose a lot of games, but they've got the benefit of the doubt being in the SEC. They've been consistently ranked 24 or 23 after losing games. BYU is interesting. I think they have had a rough stretch, especially losing Richie Saunders. I think he was a bigger part of their... I know he was insane. He's a very good player, but I think he's a bigger part of their offense than I originally realized. AJ DeBansa he's a stud. I don't like him because he beat the crap out of my Badgers, but I think he is so good. I think he's going to be maybe the 2 pick, maybe the 1, who knows. Probably the 2. I think he is really, really good, and I think BYU might be a sleeper team if they wake up here in the Big 12 tournament. Looking at the 7 line, we have Louisville, Miami, Utah State, and Villanova. I think the ACC is kind of down this year. I don't know how good Louisville and Miami are going to be. Louisville just beat Miami too, so I have them as the 1-7 seed over Miami as the 2. Utah State is coming out of the Mountain West. I think they're going to win that tournament. The Mountain West was looking like they were going to be, a 2, potentially 3 bid league, and then New Mexico just fell off a cliff. Utah State beat them. I think Utah State's good. How good are they? Not too sure, but I think they're a team to watch out for. And I think Villanova's peaking right now as well. I think they're going to be one to watch out for in the Big East and going forward. Scary team. At the 8s, we have Kentucky, St. Louis, Missouri, and Georgia. I wanted to put Kentucky lower here, but a lot of the other more experts than me have Kentucky higher. I don't know how good they are. Mark Pope, I believe, is now their head coach.
Yep.
I don't know how good he is coming over from BYU in his second year. St. Louis, a team that looked like they were far and away, going to be, they're ranked in the top 25. A couple bad losses. They lost by 30 to George Mason. I think the A-10 is kind of interesting. I have them as a 2-bid league with St. Louis not winning the tournament and VCU winning it. Missouri is interesting. They got a big win. They got a big win. No, they lost to Arkansas. Missouri's fine. I don't know how well they're going to do. I think they could be another team out of the SEC, out of a loaded SEC or a bottom half SEC team that is fine. Georgia, did they lose to Arkansas? Yeah, they've lost 2 games in a row. They also lost to Oklahoma. There's another bubble team.
For Missouri, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll see. Georgia, I think, is one to watch out for. I do think that Georgia is a high-flying team. You mentioned before I worked for the Lynx and the Timberwolves, so I'm a big Anthony Edwards and Georgia guy. I think, if they can just get guys that can play semi which they do have, I think they're going to be a stud team. Looking at the 9s, Texas A&M, Clemson, TCU, and Ohio State. Texas A&M is kind of, what's the word here? They're kind of falling into the tournament a little bit. I don't think they're on the greatest run. Clemson was looking like they could be a 7 seed. They've fallen. TCU, I think, is one to watch out for. I think they have been another inconsistent team, but I think they're capable of doing some damage. And Ohio State, like we talked about before, I think they're a scary team. I think they could potentially make a little bit of a run. Definitely one to watch out for. The 10s, we have UCLA, Texas, Iowa, and SMU. UCLA, I highlighted them before. I think they're pretty good. Texas, another team is kind of stumbling into the tournament. I think they might be an easier matchup for a 7 seed, depending. They need to have a little bit of a get back here in the SEC tournament. Iowa, I think they're on the right side of the bubble right now. Winner to in the Big Ten tournament gets them through. I think they could be good. And SMU, I think, is another team in a rough ACC that is also kind of stumbling into the tournament. Not sure. Let's see here. 11s. Miami of Ohio. Talked a lot about them. VCU, think that they're going to win the A10. USF, they're a fast team. They're pretty scary. We'll see how they do. NC State, another ACC team that's kind of fallen face first into the tournament. Not sure. Santa Clara, good out of the West Coast. I think they're going to be solid. And then UCF, looking like they were going to be insane. They've fallen off. They need to win probably 2 or 3 games if they really want to stay alive. Then, going through this is something I learned while making this bracket. 12 through 16 seeds are all auto bids, and no at-large team can be down there, which I thought was kind of fun. I have Akron as one of the 12 seeds. They're going to win the MAC, I think, unfortunately, over Miami. McNeese, I think, is good. Northern Iowa's the auto bid that already made it. Same thing with High Point. Looking at the 13s, Yale out of the Ivy League. Yale is never that great of a basketball program, but they sure do like to make some noise in March. We saw that team beat Baylor a few years ago. Several years ago, I think Yale could be interesting. Utah Valley, I think they're all right. Hofstra out of a CAA. I know you and I, we're big CAA guys, Coastal Athletic Conference. We went to a Northeastern Towson game, which Towson plays tonight. Watch out for them. Hofstra could be in trouble.
Yep.
I wanted to put Towson there, but we'll see. They have to win tonight against Hofstra to see if they make it. And then the Flames of Liberty are my last 13 seed. I think they could be good. Liberty's always got some good athletic programs. 14 seeds, we have Hawaii. Like I said, we'll see what the Rainbow Warriors can do. If they are in the West region, which I think they're going to have to keep them there just based on regionality, they could be doing pretty good, not too much of a time change. If they have to go too far east, I think that could be rough for them. North Dakota State, they won late last night against North Dakota. I think they could be an interesting team out of the Summit League. I think the Summit League is also another underrated mid-major conference. Eastern Tennessee, what a game they were in last night as a 14 seed. They, I believe, are in the finals now or the semis. They had to come back down, I think, by like 6 with a minute and a half left. That was a fun game to watch. Robert Morris is another team. I think that the 14 seed, who knows how they're going to do. And then, we get into the 15, 16 seeds. This is where, you're really happy that they came. Portland State, I think that they could be, they're not going to be too hot. Troy's fine. Tennessee State Tigers, first NCAA tournament in 32 years. Great story. Probably not going to do too well. Merrimack, same thing. I think they're going to be all right. But, I think a lot of these 15 seeds could make it a close game for 10 minutes. And then we'll see how it goes. 16 seeds, Queens, talked about them. We'll see how they do. LIU, their amazing fins up fan section is not going to be able to win them the game. And then we get into, the final 4 16 seeds, which are going to play each other. We have Howard and Vermont. A lot of people think UMBC is going to come out of the American East. I think that Vermont is a team out there that consistently wins it. I wouldn't doubt them. I think they're good. They have this guy, Wisconsin transfer, Gus Yalden, the Gus Bus. He's been really balling since I kind of bounced between Wisconsin, Seton Hall, and now at Vermont and found his footing. Bethune-Cookman, I think they could make some noise. I think they could win a game in that first 16 game. And then we have BU beating Navy last night on a deep three-pointer. I don't think they're that good, but I think that they're going to win the, what are they in, the Patriot?
Patriot League, yep.
I think they're going to win the Patriot, and then I think they're going to lose immediately. But fun story either with the buzzer beater.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a lot of words. Let me know if you have any questions.
Yeah, that was great. That was a great breakdown, and give you a second now to take a break because that was a great breakdown. You just gave a 10 to 15 minute in-depth breakdown of your bracket, which is great. And I have a couple questions to follow up with. I know you mentioned Hofstra coming out of the CAA as of now. They will play tonight, like you said, against Towson in the CAA semifinals. That's going to be a really good game. Towson has a coach that I'm a big fan of. Yep. Pat Scarry, very well-coached team. A guy that gets a lot of respect from his players, too. And I've seen him at games. I've seen him play now. I've been going to Northeast games for a long time, and I've seen him play probably 5 times, 6 times. I've seen Towson play, and not only his players always hustling and giving their full effort the entire time, they very much well respect him. He can get in his players' faces and obviously get upset if a defensive coverage was lost and they got blown past in transition, whatever it may be. But his play is very much well respect him. They had a really good win last night against Charleston, a game that was probably a lot of people thought was going to be closer, and they ended up winning that game by like 25 or 30 points. So they're getting hot at the right time. Tonight's game will be a really good one. So I want to make that note about them. And then you also mentioned the 11 seeds and 16 seeds and some of those play-in games. So right now, the first 4 games, you would have Howard versus Vermont, Bethune-Cookman versus BU as the 16, first 4 games. And then you have USF versus NC State and Santa Clara versus UCF. Of those 11 seeds, the ones we just mentioned, so USF, NC State, Santa Clara, UCF, which one of those you think is the most dangerous team heading into the first 4 games with the way things currently stand?
I think it's going to be USF, I apologize. One of the 2 Florida teams. USF, South Florida, the Bulls. I think they're a fast team. They can score the ball a ton. I think they're in the American. I also think the American's a pretty good conference year over year. And, man, those first 4 games, you get some momentum flying out of those. We've seen a few teams go on runs after that because, they have that first win under the belt. They played more recently than some of the other teams. I think USF is going to be one to watch out for. I think they could come out of that one well. Same thing with Santa Clara. I think those 2 are going to be my teams to watch out for. Hopefully they don't have to play each other. That would suck. But I think those 2 are going to be teams to watch out for.
Definitely. And I'm excited for those first 4 games, too, because I feel like the first 4 people kind of overlook a little bit because everyone thinks about the Thursday, Friday games being the best part of March Madness, which it is. That weekend is awesome. Thursday, Friday, round of 64, round of 32, Saturday, Sunday. Like, that is awesome. The first 4 games, I think, get overlooked. Like, Howard making it, Vermont making it, Bethune-Cookman making it, BU making it. Like, each one of those is a special story if they end up making it. And I think at the end of the day, those games don't get as much attention because everyone presumes the 16 seed is going to lose against the 1 seed, which very many of times that is the case. But the best thing about your bracket is you actually put a lot of in-depth knowledge and research into trying to figure out what these games would be, who you like in each of these games, who you think could make a run, which is awesome. And that's why I love looking at your bracket here. It's not like you just have 1 through 16 and not enough insight to back things up. Like each one of these teams you would talk very, very well about, which is great. And I look at you first 4 out, we already mentioned. So you have Virginia Tech, Indiana, Auburn, Oklahoma. The next 4 being Boise State, Seton Hall, West Virginia, Stanford. And then the next 4, you have Washington, California, Wake Forest, Arizona State. All of those teams we just mentioned in those first 4 out or in the next 8 as well, they all have to win their conference tournament probably, right? At this point.
I mean, also, I will be honest, I didn't put a whole ton of, which maybe this is bad, I didn't put a whole ton of effort into the next 4 and next 4. They do a lot of stuff with the net rankings. I basically just went on the next 8 net rankings.
That's fine.
And that's how I came up with that, because I'm assuming that's how they're going to do it. I don't think any of them have a shot. I think I spelled some things wrong there too. I think that all of them would need to win their conference tournaments, and if they don't, I mean, especially Washington, Cal, Wake Forest, Arizona State, there's just no shot. Yeah. Chaos would need to happen even for like Seton Hall to make it in. It's just not going to happen, unfortunately. Great NIT teams, we'll see how they do down there, the Crown or whatever other 100 tournaments we have going on. But yeah, it's going to be tough for them to make the tournament. I would be. Good for them if they make it, but I'd be shocked if they did.
Yeah, I'd imagine they have to make a deep run. And Auburn's a team that gets a lot of attention, I think, just because of how much success they had in recent years and it being a big-time program. That's why I think a lot of people think they should be, on the right side of the bubble to make it in. I know people were saying that online. I would agree with you, though. I think the way they've played this year and inconsistent, and I know the SEC is usually very good this year. Like you said, it's very heavy on the bottom half of it. It's very much kind of a lot of teams kind of clustered together. I don't think they should get the benefit of the doubt of the SEC bias here. I don't think they should get in, and I'm with you on that.
A 16-team loss should be nowhere near the... They're going to have 16 losses, more than likely, 17 wins at most. If they lose round 1, they're going to be 16-16. You cannot tell me that a 500 team should be in the tournament no matter what division, no matter what conference they're in. That's ridiculous. So... Goodbye. I hope we never have to hear about a debate like this again because it's stupid. But here we are.
We'll see. We'll see how things work out there. But is there anything else you want to add in here when talking about any of these teams? If you want to point out one or a certain player, you're more than welcome to do so before we talk about our thoughts on the 2026 NBA Draft.
Sounds good. I want to touch on what you're talking about, the first 4 games, how they often get overlooked. You are right. They do. And these games, you look at these 16 seeds, they all know they're not going to win. They're playing for just one last game with their boys. Last year, St. Francis, they were in the first 4 game. I think they lost the very first game. That was their last game as a Division I program before they dropped down to D3 because of the new NIL stuff, and they just can't afford it. These games mean a whole lot more to people than I think a lot of like the general population understands. And also, if you're a big basketball fan, you like March. Those are March Madness games. Like it's a field of 68. It's not 64 teams. So I definitely watch the games. They're always fun. Is it good basketball? Not a lot of the time. That's what makes it so fun. And so definitely watch them. I think they're always fun, and you get to see, like I said, you get to see some smaller schools. I mean, Howard and Bethune-Cookman, we could be seeing two HBCUs going head-to-head there, and I think that it's great for them. It's great for those programs, and definitely pay attention to it.
Mm-hmm. They're still in the tournament, too. I think people look at the first 4 games and overlook it because at the end of the day, like,
they're a tournament team.
Only one of those, there's only going to be 4 of those, 6 teams that end up actually making the real, round of 64 bracket. But they're still obviously in it. They're a tournament team. They won their respective tournaments. Like, that is very impressive on its own. And like you said, there's always cool stories coming out of these lower seeded teams. Like one I want to mention was Long Beach State last year. There was 2024. They announced that they were going to fire their head coach, Dan Monson, before the end of the season. So he knew he was going to get thrown out at some point. And lo and behold, that team goes on a deep run with his last 2 or 3 games, whatever it was, as a Long Beach State head coach. And he was there for, I believe, 17 seasons. So there's always special stories with those lower seeded 15, 16 seed teams.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely ones to watch out for. If you're not watching them, you're missing fun basketball. So definitely pay attention.
And now let's dive in. We'll talk about the NBA draft really quick. And this brings up my question for you. The way things stand, should Darren Peterson, Cameron Boozer, AJ DeBonsa, or Caleb Wilson, who I think is very much getting a little bit overlooked. I know the injuries are definitely a concern, but I think he's getting overlooked. Which one of those 4 players I just mentioned there do you think should go first overall?
I think it should be Cameron Boozer. That's not like a discredit to any of these other players. Cameron Boozer is the best player on the best team. I think he is so good at the game of basketball. I think they talk a lot about how you can tell when a player is going to be really good or a stud or they're ready for the NBA when the game slows down for them and they're able to see it a different way than the average college basketball player. And that's Cam Boozer. I just think he's so good. I think he's a huge kid. He's massive. And I think he can just score at will. He can get rebounds. He can assist. Everything he does is great. I think he should be the number 1. AJ DeBansa, dog. I would take him at 2. I just think Cam Boozer has stepped over him a little bit. We'll see about that. Darren Peterson and Caleb Wilson are an interesting group here. I've seen a lot of people talk about how Darren Peterson should be number 1. When he's on the court, he's insane. He had a bad game a week ago against Arizona State where he shot really poorly. But the thing about him is he doesn't play a lot. And he has a great first half and then just stops. So he's a risky one. I would be curious to know what comes out in pre-draft interviews. And then Caleb Wilson, I think to me he's kind of like a late bloomer in this. I think he's a great kid. He's a great player. Injuries obviously are a little bit of a concern. Not much you can do about it. I would see him as the 4th player out of this, but man, if the money you're going to get for going number 4 overall in the draft, I'd take that any day of the week. So I think that it should be Boozer, DeBonsa, Peterson, and then Caleb Wilson would be my order.
Yeah, that's a great order, and I think that's what the most beautiful part of the NBA draft, especially with the way things stand right now, heading into March Madness is, I think any of these guys, which I guess Caleb Wilson's probably not going to go first overall, but Peterson, Boozer, or DeBonsa might depend on the team, might depend on the GM.
Yep.
Might depend on somebody wanting to trade up and go in to get them, and they have their guy they want to get at number 1. I guess we'll see how things go there. I think the way I look at it, I think the highest ceiling, I think is AJ DeBonsa. Mm-hmm. So I would say if I'm picking right now, I think he's the guy I would take. I value, and I guess it depends on the person and the GM, right, that's drafting, and maybe that team might not need someone like AJ. They might want to go for somebody that's more of a rebounder, like for example, Cameron Boozer, for example. Like, you never know. It's going to depend on the team and where they might currently stand. The way I'm looking at these guys, though, I think DeBonsa is the best player of these 4. I think he's the highest ceiling, gets to the bucket with ease, can score at all 3 levels. Very consistent player as well. Yep. I think DeBonsa is a very special and talented player. And I know when I talked to you a few weeks ago, we were talking about player comps for some of these guys, and DeBonsa was one of them that I said he's not Giannis, and that's a very tough expectation to try to live up to. So I'm not saying he's Giannis Antetokounmpo right now, but the way Giannis gets to the bucket with ease and go around guys and is very crafty when he gets to the bucket, and is very good with his feet, good footwork, then go around guys, with Euro steps and can dribble. I see some of that in DeBonce's game. I know people probably disagree with that. That's the beauty of having a podcast, and that's obviously the beauty of us having a conversation about it, is people are going to see different things and have different opinions, and we'll see how some of these guys work out. But I think DeBonce is the best of these. I think Caleb Wilson is very much underrated. He's a guy, when I saw him play, his highlights stood out right away. And I got to watch more film on these four guys. I'll be honest, there's definitely a lot more I got to learn about them. But Caleb Wilson, from what I've seen, that guy can jump out the gym. His athleticism is very impressive, and that's a guy I would want on my team. If I'm in the LA Clippers GM, Lawrence Frank, somehow, some way, we get the Pacers' 5th pick. If it falls 5 through 9 this year, we will have the Pacers pick. If somehow Caleb Wilson falls to 5 and he's there, that I would walk it up right away before the other team picks their pick and they announce it. I already have my pick locked in with the draft card ready to go. Caleb Wilson would be my guy. At 3, I think it's tough. I'm probably going to go Boozer just from what you just said. You kind of convinced me. I would have went Peterson just because of it is a wild card, but at the same time, there is a lot of talent there. I think he's been shooting a little poorly in some games because it's very inconsistent minutes, and that is a concern, especially if you're one of these GMs. It's a very much a big-time pick here of who you're going to take. I'll go with Boozer just because, and you convinced me on it, the consistency. He's averaging 23 points, 10 rebounds. You're looking at him averaging 1.5 steals, 0.6 of a block a game. And you look at his size, too. He's 6'9", 250. And all these guys are freshmen. They're all very young, so there's definitely much high potential for all of these guys. But you convinced me to go Boozer at 3 and then Peterson at 4. Peterson is a great bucket getter. He's fun to watch. And I think it's overstated at this point, and it's a very valid point, though. That's why I want to say it is there is concern with the injuries and him not being as available. And a lot of people have said maybe it's just because he's getting ready to go to the NBA, and I get that. But every single year you'll have guys that go top 5 that played all of their college careers, including regular season games, March Madness. It's not really necessarily load management in college basketball.
Yeah.
Really ever.
No.
So that's why I'm a little bit concerned with him there, and we'll see, what ends up happening. But that would be my 4 right there.
Okay, and here's what I will say. No matter what with these 4, you're getting a stud. You can not go wrong, in my opinion, with any of these 4. And I think that you are going to make a franchise and a fan base very happy with whoever you get. So I would, someone's going to have to go 1, someone's going to have to go 4, but I think any of them are going to be studs.
I think all of them are very good players. And I think in hindsight, right, when we look 2-3 years down the line, whichever one goes 4, I wouldn't be surprised in it being the best player. You really don't know at the end of the day how these guys are going to work out, and I think that's the beauty of it because there's going to be a lot of differences in conversation where people are chatting about them. But I do think, though, that, like you said, you're getting a stud potential with all of these guys, and we'll have to see how they end up panning out and who does the best.
You make a good point there. I mean, they're also all freshmen, and they could mess up immediately when they get to the league. They're still young. Granted, you have to be mature to be this good at this age, but who knows what's gonna happen? They could snap their leg and be done. I would knock on wood. I would never wish injury on any player, but so many things could happen because they're so young that, like you said, the guy that goes 4 could be the number 1 player in the league coming up soon. So wouldn't shock me either. Yeah,
and I think, like you said too, injuries can happen. It might depend on the team they're on. They might be in a tougher culture, a winning culture, which I like actually watching the Sacramento Kings, which is crazy to say because they have a lot of players I like Russell Westbrook, DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine. I like all of those guys. But if you get drafted to the Sacramento Kings, I think it's a very tough situation for a player to try to take all of the expectations of the entire franchise, and all of the rebuilding is basically you got to figure it out and get us to that next level. Yeah. If you go to Indiana, for example, next year when Tyrese Halliburton's back healthy, they're going to be very much ready to win.
They're going to be contenders again.
The guy that's going maybe to Sacramento. So I think the team you drafted to is very much important. And we'll see where things go. But I do want to ask you one quick NFL question. Looking at the NFL free agent class for quarterbacks, I know there's a lot of question marks about the NFL draft and which quarterbacks could potentially stand out and be a first-round pick outside of Fernando Mendoza, who is essentially going to go number 1 for sure. You look at the free agent class, you got Kyler Murray right now, Aaron Rodgers, you got Kirk Cousins, you got Tua Tagovailoa, you got Geno Smith, you got Russell Wilson, you had Malik Willis as one guy, but he's now already signed with the Miami Dolphins. There's a lot of question marks, and there are a lot of teams that need a quarterback heading into this offseason. They might not get that in the draft, so maybe they take a chance on one of these guys. With those guys I just mentioned, so we'll say Murray, Rodgers, Cousins, Tagovailoa, Smith, and Russell Wilson. Which one of those guys... and I guess I'm not going to say which one because I want you to rank them, and I'm going to give my ranking on them. If you're trying to base it off of winning next year in 2026 and trying to turn things around as a franchise, and we're not talking rebuilding because if you're rebuilding, obviously Rodgers would not be your pick, with it being probably his last year. Which one of those guys would you take first, and then which one of those guys did you end up having as your sixth quarterback of those? And I can give mine first if you'd like.
No, yeah. Give yours first.
I'll give mine first, and then you could take a second to think about it. But mine would be Aaron Rodgers, number one. I think Rodgers, even though he is old and it might end up being his last season next year, I think Aaron Rodgers still has some quality football in him. He looked good last year, and I think if you're trying to win right now, he brought the Steelers to be competitive again last year, and he's a very much still a competitive player. If he's playing, he's going to want to win, obviously. And I guess that goes for anybody, but Rodgers wouldn't be coming back just to play another year and check a box. He's trying to obviously go for another Super Bowl, and we'll see if he ends up getting that, but I think Rodgers still has some quality football in him. My second guy there would be Tua Tagovailoa, and I know that's probably a hot take considering the Dolphins just released him today and are chewing $100 million in dead money over the next 2 seasons. But I think with Tagovailoa, if he ends up going to Atlanta, which that is a report right now that the Falcons are interested, he's played in 6 career games in a dome, 5-1 record, 10 passing touchdowns, 3 picks, with 249 passing yards per game. I think Tua obviously has had his concerns, especially in colder weather, which I think is very valid. When you're playing in the AFC East, you're playing in New Jersey for 2 games against the Giants and the Jets. You're playing in Buffalo against the Bills, and you're playing in Miami, which is on the warmer side. But now when you go to the NFC South and you're playing in a warmer division, you could say, where you're playing in domes for 3 of those games with the Saints, the Falcons, and the who's the other team there? You got the Panthers would be outside, and you would have the Falcons indoors, you'd have the Saints indoors, you have the Bucks outside. But it's very much warm weather conditions there. I think he could succeed there in Atlanta. I know it's a hot take, but we'll see how things work out. I'd go Kirk Cousins. I saw some potential still in him last year. I know he's had his injuries over the last couple of years as well, but I think he can still play a little bit. Kyler Murray, I think availability is the best ability, and that's something that's overstated a lot of the time, but I think it's valid. He's just had a lot of injuries, especially this past season. So I'll put him in 4th, Geno Smith 5th, and Russell Wilson in 6th. I think both of those guys are pretty much probably done being starters. Maybe they get just a bridge year start for a team, but if I'm trying to win, right now, be competitive this next year, I think those would be my last 2 picks. But what about you? I'll let you give your thoughts on it.
I agree with Aaron Rodgers being the number 1 pick. Obviously, as a huge Packer fan, it was sad to see him go. I'm not the biggest J-Love guy, but it is what it is. I think Aaron Rodgers can lead any team. He should have gone to the Vikings last year. I think they needed someone that wasn't J.J. McCarthy, because I think he sucks. Aaron Rodgers, I would go after him. 2, I would say Kirk Cousins. I think he's been shown that he can win games. I think last year in Atlanta last couple of years in Atlanta has been tough. I think he's going to be good. I would take him. Out of the remaining 3, gosh, I would put Kyler Murray at 3. I know he's been hurt, but he's young at least. Geno Smith, I would go next. I think Geno Smith is, like you said, Geno Smith and Russell Wilson would be my next 2. They're old, they're falling off, but if they need a quarterback, better him than some random guy that you might get. I think Tua needs to retire from the NFL. He is I know, like you said, and his stats and domes are interesting. I think Tua needs to be reminded that he's a football player every day when he wakes up. You ever seen the movie 50 First Dates?
I have, yes.
Yeah, where they have to play a video to show her her memory
with
every
Adam
day.
Sandler, is it?
Yeah,
yes, I've seen the movie,
I think that's what they have to do to Tua Tagovailoa. Which is sad because he was fun to watch at Alabama, fun to watch in the beginning of his career. I don't think he knows what day it is anymore with how many times he's been hit in the head. I think that CTE is unfortunately going to take over real soon. I don't think that he should be touching a football anytime soon. I think he should go home, be with his family, go back to Hawaii. I would not take him because I think he's a concussion away from being done playing and being severely injured for the rest of his life. Unfortunately, love you, Tua. It would have been fun to watch you keep on playing, but I would not touch him. For 1, I think it's gonna be bad for your team, and 2, I think for player safety as well. He should not be on the field. But those are my rankings. And also Russell Wilson, love you as a Badger. I think your time is done. Just retire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's probably it for Russ's career, and I think Geno as well. But we'll see. I think the reason why I want to ask that question is because there's a lot of question marks about the potential 1st and 2nd and 3rd round pick quarterbacks in this year's draft, and maybe some of these teams that need a quarterback needy are going to go to one of these guys we just mentioned. And the free agency class isn't necessarily the best. I think Daniel Jones is another guy that's included, but he obviously was franchise tagged, I believe, by Indianapolis. So he's a guy who took off this list and also was injured this past year, got hurt, but he showed a lot of potential there with Indianapolis. So we'll see what he does there with the Colts under the franchise tag. And one last thing, quick 30 seconds, I'll ask, because since I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Thoughts in the Green Bay Packers offseason. What would you like to see them do?
I was sad that we missed out on Max Crosby. I think having him and Micah Parsons would have been insane. What I want to see them do is never going to happen. We need a couple more receivers. We need to throw the ball to Matthew Golden more. We also need to get rid of Jordan Love. I'm not a big J Love guy. This last year, I mean, I think he's a good quarterback. Don't get me wrong. But my issue with him is we paid him a ton of money, and when he gets hurt, and Malik Willis would come in, which said he's going to the Dolphins now. When Malik Willis would come in, there's no drop off. Which is awesome. It's awesome in games when I know that our backup quarterback is going to come in, and we're going to be able to play the same style of football and they still be as good. But I don't want to be paying my quarterback $100-some million. I'm thinking it's even more, something like $200 million.
I think it's 250 almost.
Yeah, that's insane. That's insane for a guy who is the same quality as our backup. But granted, Malik Willis is a stud. I'm not a big J Love guy. I would like us to get a new quarterback, so that's what I want to see happen. It's never going to happen. Max Crosby would have been fun. A couple other receivers would have been great. But what can we do? I know DJ Moore. Where is he going to? The Bills?
DJ Moore's traded to the Bills. Yeah.
That would have been nice to bring him up from Chicago. That'll never happen. I know we got rid of Rashawn Gary, which I think people are pretty happy about. We got a decent pick for him.
Third rounder. He has a heavy cap hit the next couple of years. I think that's a good return for Rashawn Gary. I do.
Yeah. We'll see how they do. I'm looking for. I think the Packers are going to be good again next year. I think injuries obviously plagued us this year. But yeah, I think we're going to be solid. I want a new quarterback, but I think a lot of people do too. So what can you do? But I think, I don't think we need to do too much this offseason besides just get a couple receivers and really bolster that solid defense that we have.
And hopefully everybody's healthy heading into next year. That was a big issue, obviously, heading into the playoffs for them. But thank you so much, Ben, for your time. We'd love to have you back on as a guest at some point soon. But it was an absolute pleasure talking college hoops with you and talking the NFL as well. Thank you again for your time. Much appreciated, my friend. Thank you. You have a great rest of your day.
You too.